Welcome to our channel, Mind Divine Light, where we reveal to you the secrets of mysticism, esotericism, and even Christianity. If you are interested in walking on this earth in the kingdom of God, in the here and now, you're in the right place. I'm Patricia, and this is Lance Lamans, and he's going to be revealing to you everything he knows about the continuum, the time continuum.
Okay. All right. Well, welcome. Happy to be here with you. And today we're going to talk about time. And first, I would just like to say that this work that we're in is a simple message, but it takes sincerity. If you're not sincere, you're not going to get the benefit from it. So if you want to walk in the kingdom of God, then this will help you and give you principles that you can use to apply and to move forward towards the kingdom, which is really already here and now. But until we bring ourselves out of the false ideas that the world's put upon us, we will not be able to benefit by it. So it takes sincerity, and it does take some determination, because it's not that God wants us to put forth effort. It's not the effort that causes the result. However, it takes effort to bring your attention back on God and pull your attention back out of the world and back onto God. And that's what produces a result. So it just takes some real sincerity and some real determination in order to make it work. Now, the kingdom of God is here and now. It's always been here and now. There's no kingdom that you go to. The kingdom of God is not a place. The kingdom of God is within you. And we have to learn to bring it out into the world, out into the outer expressions. So I want you for a moment to join me in a meditation. And I want you to close your eyes and put your attention up in your head, just for a moment, and then take that attention and put it back behind your head. And then go up above your head. So you're back behind your head and above your head. And if you can keep your attention there, if you practice, maybe at first you won't notice anything, but if you practice it, you will begin to see a light shining there. And that really is a glimpse into your own God self. And it is like a shining sun, S-U-N, a bright sun. Jesus said, "I am the bright and morning star." And that's the God self. That is your God self and my God self and everyone's God self. And it is shining. And it is coming through that radiance. And Patty called it the radiant God self, the radiant self. And that's what it is. And it radiates out into the world through the soul, and it comes out through the heart, into the mind, out into the body, and out into the world. It radiates out. And those are the extensions of our God self, of our radiant self. It extends out from us. That radiant self that we call our inner God is our true identity. That's who we really are. We are that life. And that is moving through us, through our soul, and becoming the outer expressions, or what we call the extensions of ourself. Now, God has given us a mind, and that mind is a receiver and a transmitter. And what it receives, it transmits. And what it transmits reflects back as images. And those images are what we detect with our five senses. So whatever you fill the mind with, whatever you receive into your mind, that transmits out, becomes the images of this world, and then we detect it with our five senses, and that becomes our experience. So that gives us the basics of what the mind is and how it operates. And when we are receiving what the world is telling us, the truth is, when we receive that into the mind, that's what it transmits, and that's what we end up experiencing. Now, the world doesn't know the truth. The world has no idea what God is, and what it tells us is when we accept it and agree with it, that fills our mind. And when that fills our mind, it transmits out, and then that reflects back and becomes our experience as we sense it with our senses. Now, the world tells us that it's a material world and we have physical bodies, as if some God had placed us here, had created a world and then just put us in it, and then we just experienced that world. Now, that's what the world tells us. But that is not the truth. That's not the truth about God's creation. The truth is whatever we fill the mind with, that's what we experience. And whatever we allow to fill our minds with becomes our responsibility, and it becomes our experience. Now, we can let the world fill the mind, and we can experience what the world is telling us, and it fills our mind when we agree with it. When we listen to it, put our attention on it, accept it, then that becomes what we experience. If we learn to bring what God is into our minds, then that will project outwardly. It will transmit because the mind will receive it, and then it will transmit that, and we'll have the experience of God, or God's images. So, when the soul first came into form, it saw that the forms were changing. And so it thought, oh, if form is changing, then time must be passing. And we got tricked into believing that was the truth. And the world was telling us that we're going to grow up, we're going to grow old, our bodies are going to decay, and we're going to die. And we accepted that because we looked around with our five senses, and that's what we saw. Because everybody else was accepting the same thing. We were all in agreement that that's what the truth was, and so that's what we were producing. And it became this passing of time. And so we began to believe that what happened yesterday causes my today. In other words, if I ate good food yesterday, I would feel good today. Or if I ate bad foods yesterday, I would feel bad today. Or if a germ came into my life yesterday, today I would feel the effects of that. It was all about life moving by and bringing with it all the causes, or so-called causes, of yesterday into today. And whatever I did today would cause my tomorrow. And so we accepted that, and we didn't realize that our acceptance of that was what brought that type of an image into our minds, and we experienced it. And so we're experiencing time, and yet there is no time. Time never passed by. It never has. There never has been time. Now it's a little hard to accept at first, but I'm going to show you what the difference is. In time, we expect what we gathered yesterday to be with us today. So what happens is we get into this habit, and this habit has been developing for thousands of lifetimes. We've got into the habit of bringing yesterday into today. So when I looked in the mirror yesterday, when I got into today and looked in the mirror, I thought who I was yesterday has come into today. Except for it changed a little bit because the world's telling me my body has to grow old, and so that's what was happening. So it looked the same, but it was a little different, just slightly different every day. And there is change in our bodies every day, but it never was meant to decay. It was never meant to be diseased. It was never meant to be blemished. Those things are human creations. and they have nothing to do with God. Now, this bright and radiant sun that is within us, that is back behind us, shining out, which is our true life, and it shines through the soul, and it becomes and expresses as form, as the feelings, as the thoughts, as the body, as the world. It expresses or extends itself outwardly. And the outward part, the extension part, the expression part, that is constantly changing, because God is recreating this universe every second of every day, recreating your body every second of every day. So in reality, life is coming from within us and moving outwardly into expression. And it's not coming from yesterday into today and from today into tomorrow. That is the delusion, and that is what the world has been trying to convince us of. But in reality, God is our creator, and God is constantly creating through us and shining himself through us, which embodies all of his perfect idea of who we are. And that is there for us to bring into the mind and to have the experience of. But because we're not accepting that, because we didn't really know about it, nobody told us that God was flowing through us every moment of every day and becoming form. And that is what we call the blood of the Lamb. Our God self is sacrificing itself as form so that we as souls have the experience. Okay? Now, when we accepted what the world was telling us, which is in opposition to what our God self is bringing to us, then we have that experience instead. It covers up basically what God is bringing to us, because our attention's on what the world is saying instead of our attention being on what God is providing. Now, there's only one substance. When we look out at the world with our five senses, we see all this duplicity. And we see a multiple of different things. A tree, a mountain, a house, a car, a table, bodies, different bodies. And we look at it as if it were all divided up. But in reality, what we're seeing is only one substance. Everywhere we look, there is only one undividable substance. It is omnipresent, and it cannot be divided. It cannot be separated. And it is luminous. It is what gives us light. It is behind all the mental images. And the mind then applies on top of that whatever we fill the mind with. The mind builds on that substance with its quantum particles, and then they gather together and make atoms, and those atoms make molecules, and the molecules make cells, and the cells make bodies. But it's taking the ideas and the concepts that we're putting into that mind, and that's what it's building with. Now, it's not real form. It's mind forms. It is mind constructs. And it's built, but the only thing that's really there, that is real, is that one luminous substance. Now, Jesus said, the eye is the light of the body. And that luminous substance is filling the eye, and that becomes what our body is. What we see with the eye is what our body becomes, what we think we're seeing. And so when we're looking at the images and not realizing that what's really there is God's form, the substance of God is all that's there, when we don't realize that, then our bodies take the shape of these ideas that have been filling our minds. And so Jesus said, but if thine eye be single, thy whole body will be full of light. So when you look out at the world, if you look past all the images and understand that there's only one substance, that you're not looking at a divided world, you're looking at one solid, undividable world, and it is luminous, then thy whole body will be full of light. And at night, we think it's dark, but our eyes will adjust, and then we'll be able to see. We think that it's the eyes that are changing, that are adapting to make us able to see. But in reality, that's not true. We can see immediately in the dark when we understand that it's not the eyes that see. It is this radiant life shining through us onto this luminous substance that gives light and color and substance and form. And so we've been deluded into thinking that we're caught up in this thing called time, and that it's passing us by. And so we look at the world and we see yesterday, today, and tomorrow, when in reality all that's here is the radiant light shining through, producing form, changing form every minute of every day according to what's in the mind, according to what we fill the mind with. In reality, we are timeless. We've never been in time. There never was time. Time is an illusion. It's not passing by. Life is coming from within to the without. It's not coming from yesterday into today and then into tomorrow. Now, the things in the mind that get transmitted out and become these images, those images are unchangeable. So to look at the world and want to change it keeps us locked into the passing of time, simply because it cannot be changed. Because whatever we put in the mind gets transmitted out and comes back to us. We've already done it. It's already been done. And so To want to change it is to be deceived. Now, what we can do, and here's the great thing about it, the thing that we can do is we can recreate a new scenario, a new premise to live by letting God fill our minds, and then letting that project out, and then letting that come back as God images instead of human images. Okay? So that is the time continuum that we believe we're in, passing by, but the real time continuum is not time at all. It's a timeless continuum. And it's a constant flow coming from us, flowing out into the world and becoming the world that we experience. That's the reality. And when we wake up to that, when we put our attention on it, when we put our attention on that radiant light that shines through our soul, and we follow it out into form, then that fills our mind with that radiant light. And that changes our whole world. And so that is the basics of how we got caught up in time when there never was time. We are timeless. God is timeless. And nothing in eternal can ever enter into passing time, because everything in time is passing away, dying off. And the eternal doesn't die off. It ever renews. It ever replenishes. It ever regenerates. And that's why Jesus said, follow me into the regeneration. Follow your inner Christ to the regeneration, which you are and which you were in. But if you're not aware of it and your attention's not on it, then you won't get the experience of it. So in other words, you won't benefit by it. So it's all about shifting over out of time to your timeless self. Now, Patty, did you have something you want us to?
Well, while you're on the subject about the part of our consciousness that you can assign duties to, starting the movement out of time. You just mentioned going out of time. Is this one of the practices that helps you from your book?
Let's take a look and see.
I think it is.
Okay. This says, practicing and igniting spiritual intention. Okay, so now we're talking about, well, how do we really, what do we do? You know, we're in this passing of time, and now we've learned that we're actually timeless, but how do we switch over to where we're living in our timeless self? So the next time you sit in meditation, imagine you are rubbing two sticks together and blowing on the embers to ignite the fire. This is a stirring of the spirit. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to, even though our inner radiant sun is already shining through, we want to awaken to it. But for us, it's as if we have to ignite it into our life. So this is a stirring of the spirit. And it is a way of inviting the great invisible spirit to join you. Sometimes I rub my hands together, blowing on them as a way to open myself up to what may come. It is not the actions or the words which mean anything. You know, it's not the outer expressions, it's the inner intentions. It is your intention that the Spirit hears. It is your vibration holding meaning for the Spirit. It can be any type of action or symbol. It is not Spirit needing the coaxing. The Spirit doesn't need to be coaxed. It is ourselves which needs to spark a flame within us, our own soul. It is a way to show ourselves we are participating, and doing something about it. After we make the choice, we need action. We need to do something about it. Making the choice is great, and it's a first step, but we also need to do something about it, because God didn't put us in this situation. We did. Unknowingly, we didn't mean to do it, but now we're in this mess that we've created. It's up to us to find a way out. This blowing on the embers is one way we show ourselves we are inviting the Spirit of God to join us in our healing work. We can feel it rising within us. This brings on a confidence with a commitment which ripples through time. It is a calmness, knowing nothing is wrong with God's creation or His expressions. It goes much deeper than we can imagine from the human standpoint. It is a gentle strength which awakens us to the knowledge there is nothing we cannot do with Spirit alive in us. This brings on a confident calmness working behind the scenes while accomplishing the work. Okay, thank you very much, sweetheart.
So it's sort of like a
appreciate it.
directive. Is it sort of a directive you can give yourself and then go on throughout the day, and it will continue to be working in the background, like an app running in the back of your phone?
There is a principle that says that there's a part of our consciousness which we can give directives to. And one of those directives can be to keep our attention and our focus on the Spirit of God moving through us. This radiant God self moving through our soul out into expression. So while we're doing our duties, or even while we're sleeping, if we give that directive to that part of our consciousness, it works in the background just like a computer program running while we're doing other programs, while we're doing other work on the computer. It will run that program for us. Now, at first, we might have to remind our consciousness to keep that going. In the morning when you get up, or before you get up, today I want my consciousness to stay focused on God's radiant light shining through me throughout the day, knowing that it is producing its perfection wherever I am and whatever I'm doing. So if I get involved in other duties, that's still going to be running in the background. And you wouldn't believe how much upliftment that can bring for you if you practice it. So the effort is not so much effort that makes gain. It's just the effort to bring your attention to what is real, which is this radiant self shining through you. Okay, very nice. Thank you. Okay, now I'd like to read to you chapter 12 out of Revelations, because it has a lot to do with what we've been talking about. So we're going to go through it. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. Now, this is heaven. There's no other heaven, but it's up to us to transform it into the Garden of Eden. No God is going to come down here and do it for us. We have to do it. Now, we can get help, and that's going to show us a little bit later, and we'll talk about that. But the woman was clothed with the sun. Now, that sun is God, the one omnipresent, infinite God. And it is a sun shining. And the rays of that sun are us. It shines through us. And that is itself a sun shining. That God self, that individual God that we are, is a sun shining. And it shines through us. And the moon under her feet, the moon represents time. So the woman is the soul. It's not a woman, not male, female. That's the soul. Soul man, we call it, but it's soul woman, you know. The standing on the moon represents the cycles of time. And the soul is still standing in the idea that time is passing. The soul is still accepting, when it looks out at the world, that time is passing by. Even though the sun is shining through it, and on her head was a crown of 12 stars. The 12 stars represent the way back to our sun self, S-U-N, our shining, radiant sun within us. And those stars shine through into time, even though the eternal can never come into time. It shines through to show us a way back into our timeless self. Just like the 3 wise men followed the star to Jesus' birth, to the birth of Christ, which represents really the birth of Christ in you. We're the 3 wise men that need to follow the stars back to the Christ, okay? And that's what the 12 stars are. And the 12 represents the completion of it. But they're the guiding light, you know. They're what we need to follow. And Jesus said, I am the bright and morning star. And that is that radiant sun shining in us, which is our God self. And when we follow that star back to that sun, then that's the completion of our spiritual advancement. And she, being with child, cried, travailing in birth and pained to be delivered. The child is the birth of Christ. And that takes place when we are following those stars. Then we become pregnant with the Spirit, and that Spirit then takes birth, which means it is born in form. And so it's the travailing is our resistance against that, because we are so locked into time, even though we're following the stars to the timeless and we're trying to bring ourselves out of time, we're still standing on the moon. We're still standing in the idea that time is passing. And that resistance is the pain of the birth of Christ, because the Christ cannot be born until we come out of the idea that we're not passing through time, that we're living in an eternal now moment. And when we start to live in that eternal now moment, that becomes the birth of Christ, because that eternal now moment will fill the mind, and then the form will be the Christ form. But that's gonna cause travailing, because we're resistant to it, because for thousands of years we've been stuck in this passing time, and we can't hardly get out of the habit of it. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his head. Now, the dragon is not in God's heaven, and yet this is heaven. What we see as mortality is just a false idea that the world tried to convince us of, and we produce that by filling the mind with it. And so it seems like we're living in mortality. It seems like we're living in passing time. But in reality, we're not. We're in heaven right now. But we're not enjoying it, because we're not letting the mind fill with that heaven. And so for us, there's a red dragon in our heaven. Now, the dragon's not a real thing. The dragon is all the world ideas that came to the mind of the world since the beginning of the earth. And that collection of ideas, and that has developed over time, and it becomes this idea of what life is. This is a material universe. God created this world and then put you in it, and then you just have to live with it and do the best you can. That's what the world tries to teach us. And that's what we fill our minds with, and so that's the experience we have. And that's the dragon. And so, having 7 heads, the 7 heads are all the different aspects of the dragon. And 7 means all that the dragon is. It shows up as different aspects, and yet it's all one thing. And the main head of the dragon is time. Time that passes. And space is another head. The idea that the world we live in has material laws that we are bound under. That's another head. It's not 7 specific things, it's all the aspects of the dragon. The 7 represents the totality of it. And the 10 horns represent those 7 heads, what they proliferate, then appear as powers out in the world. Because the premise of the dragon is that this world is a fixed material world that was created and it's slowly evolving. But because of that premise, then we're bound by those material laws, which says if a germ gets into your body, you're going to get sick. Or if the stars are arranged a certain way, then you're going to act a certain way. All those powers, that there's people out there that can do harm to you, that there's conditions, storms, and wars, and all these things that can have an effect on you. That's the 10 horns. Now, none of that stuff is true. They're not real powers, but they act as powers as long as we accept them. As long as when we accept the premise that there's passing time, then we get all those powers come with it. See? And the 7 crowns represent the authority that we give the dragon. The dragon has no authority of itself, but when it fills our mind and we accept that or agree with it, that that's what the truth is, then that's what we're going to experience. And so we think that the world is correct, and that gives it the authority to continue. Our agreement with it, when we sense it with our 5 senses, we think that's reality, that it has to be that way because that's what the world told us. And so our agreement with that keeps it going. It proliferates it. And that is the 7 crowns. That's its authority, which is not a real authority. We're the ones with the authority. But we're giving it over to the world, to this so-called red dragon, which, remember, is not a real entity. It's not an entity. It's just world ideas that we're in agreement with. So it affects our world. And so we're in heaven, but now we got a dragon in our heaven. Not because God put it there, but because we allowed it to come in. And his tail drew a third part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them into the earth. Now this third part, our soul, even though our soul is following those stars, there's a third part of us that is just resistant and doesn't want to come out of the world. And that idea of time passing, of there being space, and that we're mortals, that sweeps us back into mortality, back into passing time. But it's only a third part of us. It's not all of us, because there's a part of us that is still following the 12 stars, which is heading towards our bright and shining sun within us. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered, to devour her child as soon as it was born. So the dragon knows that something's up, because we're shifting out. And even though the dragon's not an entity, it has a momentum that keeps it going. And our belief in it is feeding that momentum. And so when the Christ is ready to be born, it's as if you took a stick and poked it at a snake. Yeah, it's gonna start throwing stuff at you, and you're gonna look out at the world and go, what is all this chaos? What is all this evil? And that's what that is about. And she brought forth a man-child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. And her child was caught up into God and to his throne. And so the soul, when it develops this relationship with its inner God self, and that becomes alive in the outer forms, in the extensions of life through the soul, then the Christ is born, because we're starting to see the perfect images that is embedded in the radiant light that is shining through us. And that's the Christ child. And he rules. No longer does the form have to conform to what the world says. Now the form can conform to what the soul declares, to what the soul now knows its true self is, which is this inner God. And so now we have dominion. We are taking our dominion back, and that's the rod of iron. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she had a place prepared of God, and they should feed her there 1,260 days. So the wilderness, the woman fleeing to the wilderness, and these are our moments of meditation, the times when we go out into the mountains and go out into the wilderness and sit by ourselves and get to know ourselves, our true self. Really get to know ourselves. That's the wilderness. And that's a place that is prepared for God. By getting to know ourselves, which is God, we prepare a place where God can come through us. And we're fed this 1,260 days, again, that's the halfway point. And the halfway point of the soul, that's not passing of time. It's the unfoldment of the soul that unfolds little by little as the soul rises itself into the truth about its true nature. Now, at the halfway point is when we decide, or when we realize that God is a reality, that there is a God that resides within us and is always with us, and always has been, and always will be. And when we realize that, and then make a choice, realizing we've put ourselves in a condition of mortality, and now we're going to make a choice to come out of that mortality. That we put ourselves in passing time, and now we're going to come out of passing time into our timeless self. That's the halfway point. We make that choice, and then when we actually start doing something about it. So here we are halfway. It has nothing to do with passing of time. It has to do with the unfoldment of the soul. And there was war in heaven, and Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought, and his angels fought, and prevailed not. Neither was their place found any more in heaven. And so, once we get to that halfway point, once we're on our way home, it's like the prodigal son story, right? Once the prodigal son goes all the way out there and realizes, what the heck am I doing here? I want to go home. once it gets halfway home, the Father comes out to greet it. And that means he sends his angels to help us. So at that point, we have help from heaven. And I don't mean a heaven somewhere else, but these are the souls that have gone beyond the halfway point up into the soul realm, the spirit realm, and even into the Christ realm. And that's Michael. And they come down and help us do battle with the dragon. Because when we allow that radiant sun shining through us to fill the mind, that will burn away all those ideas from the dragon that have embedded themselves in our mind over the thousands of years. All those ideas have actually been settling down into our subconscious mind. And it takes having that spirit come into the mind to burn that away. We can deal with the surface stuff, but it really takes our inner God self coming through and our attention and agreement with it to bring it into the mind, and then it will burn away that old stale stuff that's settled down into the bottom of our mind. And then we can start moving forward beyond the 3.5. Okay? And prevailed not. Okay. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceived the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. And so, there it is. When our God self comes into the mind, it consumes all those ideas that are in our individual mind that we've been accepting from what we call the world mind, which is the dragon. And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now is come salvation, and the strength and the kingdom of our God, and the power of his Christ. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our God day and night. Now is where we are. Now is our salvation. It's here. It's always been here. But until we accept it, until we wake up and realize that God put us in heaven and he never kicked us out. He never kicked us out of heaven. He never kicked us out of the Garden of Eden. We took ourselves out of it, and we didn't even really do that. All we did was cover it up with the idea of mortality. And so we're still here. We're still in God's heaven, and we just have to wake up to that. Wake up and realize we are here now. We're in a eternal now moment, and we've never been out of it. We've never been in passing time. And once we realize that, we start to wake up to the spirit that's flowing from us, shining through us out into the world, producing our forms, producing our minds and our heart. And which accuse them before our God day and night. Now the dragon accuses us of being mortal. He accuses us of being beings that are in time, that are in passing time. He accuses us of being physical bodies in a material world. That's not the truth. He's accusing us of it, and if we believe him, then, we're going to suffer for it. But now that we've gone beyond the 3.5 days, we're going to get some help, and we're going to start waking up more and more as we go along to what our reality really is. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb. So the blood of the Lamb is that light shining through us that becomes our heart, our mind, our bodies, and our world. Outer expressions. That's the blood of the Lamb. It sacrifices itself that we might have, that the soul can experience God. Okay? And by the word of their testimony, our testimony of it is what produces it. When we're aware of it and we keep our mind on it and we watch it and give testimony to it, that it is alive, it's real, its intelligence and its activity and its love is with us always and is moving through us and is ready to produce its perfection for us. And our testimony of that, even against what we're sensing with our 5 senses, even though we're looking at something different, our testimony is with it. And when that happens, then that is us being with the blood of the Lamb. And they love not their lives unto death. So we no longer love our life that's passing through time. We realize now we're timeless. We never were in passing time. That was an illusion. And we got bamboozled into believing that that was the truth. And we've been living, thinking about the past, worrying about the future, instead of living in this now moment, this eternal now moment, in our timeless self. Watching the light shine through us and producing the perfection, filling our minds with God's truth and no longer filling it with what the world claims. Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. And woe to the inhabitants of the earth and the sea, for the devil is come down to you, having great wrath, because he knows that he has but a short time. So we rejoice in our heaven, which is here and now, which now we realize we're in, and we never were out of it. He just tricked us into believing we were out of it. And those who still live in time will still be persecuted. But nonetheless, that dragon has a short time because we're on our way and everybody's on their way. You know, it's just a matter of where they are in the unfoldment of their own soul. But we're all on our way home. And those who have made it to the halfway point, to the 3.5, then that is a short time. It'll still appear for a while we're filling the mind with our God self. The dragon's images will still appear because they've been coming into the mind, filling the mind, and going out for so long that a lot of it is still out there waiting to come back in. And so it takes a little time, but know that its time is short. And when the dragon saw that he was cast into the earth, he persecuted the woman which brought forth the man-child. And so, that's just, the dragon's going to fight against the Christ being born in us. It's going to fight against us bringing our God self into the mind because it's used to dominating us. But now we're taking our dominion back. And to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place, where she is nourished for a time and times and half a time, and from the face of the serpent. So the 2 wings of an eagle, though that is when we spend more and more time in and with our God self, with our attention on it, with our awareness of it, and developing that relationship with it, the more we do that, the more we go away and more revelation comes through. More of the truth about who we are comes through from our inner self. And that becomes the wings that lift us up, beyond this 3.5 point, heading towards the soul kingdom. And the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away of the flood. And that's the flood of time. So the serpent is going to do everything it can to flood the mind with the idea that time is passing, that we're in a material world and we're mortal beings, and there's nothing we can do but grow old and die. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood which the dragon cast out of his mouth. And so our spirit self swallows that up, because now we have a steady flow of that radiant light coming into the mind. And as the world mind tries to bring in all those false ideas about the world, then that light devours it. It swallows it up. And the dragon was wroth with the woman, the world mind, not happy with the soul, because now the soul's taking its dominion back, and that means the dragon is not going to have a life anymore, not with us. And went to make war with the remnant of her seed. The remnant of the seed is, as we grow in consciousness, we give to the world, and that becomes part of the world consciousness. And in the other souls that are in the world that might not quite be at the same point, that becomes our remnant. And then the dragon wants to go after them, because it can't, it knows now that it's lost its battle with us personally. And so it's going to go after the others. And which they keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. So they still have the stars to follow. They still have the testimony of Christ. And they will be saved, even though the dragon is going to try and get them. Okay.
And you give this beautiful description to those that are desperate not to be left behind. At some point, we must realize God chose us. We chose God eventually on our journey. This is only possible because God saw we were ready to come back to the place God made for us. Like He sent the woman into to see it. He sent His angels and immortals to help us find our way back to God. It really is the Christ within us making the choice. Do you want to finish? It's only a small paragraph.
Okay. The human self does not have the capacity to raise above the images it is making. See, we made those images, but we've locked ourselves into it, so we don't really have the capacity to lift ourselves out, and that's why God sends his angels to help us. The masters that have gone before us, all the souls that are ahead of us, they're going to come help us. At some point, we realize this human life is not getting us anywhere. Then this awakens something in us saying, I want to go home. I'm done with this world. As soon as this happens, we are on our way back to God, while God is sending all the help and guidance we need. The immortals have always been calling us, inviting us. Yet until we get to a particular point in our unfoldment, we do not hear the calling. When you find yourself reading this book, then know you are called. No one who is not ready would be able to hold an interest in these ideas for very long. Talk about God bores them. The people that are still stuck in time and are not really noticed that they have a God self, they're going to be bored with this type of talk. This is okay because everyone will come when they're ready. It's not a bad thing. It's just when they're ready, they'll come. You might ask, am I ready? The answer is yes. You are answering the call when you have doubts or other troubling emotions. All the lower mind troubles will begin to fade as you move forward. Okay, thank you. That was perfect. Yeah, and that's in the book, You're Divinely Made. Okay, and you can find that on our website at mydivinelight.com. So, or in Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all those places, you can get it.
That was a perfect ending, though.
Yes, very nice.
Because the people are wondering, how do I do it? You give them a word by word. Fill your mind, you're making your tomorrow. One of the most interesting examples I've heard you say before is that no one can fail because you cannot move backwards.
That's right. Yeah.
And that'll be next week.
Once you head towards the spirit, yeah, we'll talk about that more.
It's a long
once you head towards the spirit, you're on your way. You're going steadily forward, even if it doesn't seem like it. You're moving towards God. Keep your focus on it. Keep working it. Be determined. And you'll get there. We all will get there. And God is sending his helpers once we make that choice. Okay? And it's lovely to be with you. And we'll see you in the next video.
Thank you for visiting, and thank you for your time.
Absolutely.
Yes, and we love you.
Yep. And we hope all of you get to enjoy the kingdom of God on earth before you have to be reincarnated. Who wants to do that again, right? Okay. All right. Good day.